Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey everybody, I am delighted to introduce my guest today, Chris Fenning. Chris makes it easier for us to communicate at work. Oh, I love the sound of that. He helps experts talk to non-experts, teams talk to executives, and much more. Chris's practical methods are used in organizations like Google and NATO and have appeared in the Harvard Business Review. He is also the author of multiple award-winning books on communication and training that have been translated into 15 languages. Today, Chris joins us to share how to make training stick, something that all trainers and instructors strive for with their programs. Helping people retain and apply what he teaches led Chris to write a new book, 39 Ways to Make Training Stick. What to do after trainees leave the room? This practical guide details all the methods we can use to make our own training stick. And he's going to tell us all about his career path and how he got to this point. So please join me in welcoming Chris Fenning. Hi, Chris.
Hello, Tammy. Thank you so much for inviting me on the show. It's a real pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you, and thank you for joining us from your home office in the Netherlands.
Yes. The wonderful thing about being online is I could be anywhere in the world. But those who know me will recognize the same background no matter what I'm doing. So this means I'm at home, yes.
Well, and I can tell by your voice that you're not a native of New Jersey or something.
I'm not. But if y'all want, I could do the whole interview talking like this. I could be from any other place y'all might want.
Oh, that's great. Well, see, you could fake it as an American. But anyway, we are really happy. Me, myself, and I were really happy to have you here. And as you know, on Work from the Inside Out, we really love to begin with the beginning and learn about your formative years and how you got to where you are today, because I know it's a very interesting story. So take us back to those early years, and then we'll stroll through the whole journey from there.
The early years. Well, once upon a time in the beginning, the early years, I was a kid, as most of us are. I think we all go through that phase. And I had what to me seemed like a very normal upbringing. But in hindsight, it turns out it was, each of us has our own journey. So I'll tell you a little bit about mine. I was born just outside London in England, and I lived with my family in sort of the classic mum, dad, brother, sister environment. So there were the four of us. And life seemed pretty normal, but looking back, I realized that my parents worked really, really hard just to feed us.
Oh.
And that's one of the things that you don't appreciate as a child. I mean, you know, whether there's enough food or not enough food. We always had, from my perspective, we always had enough food and we always had clothes, but we never had more. We never had extra. Holidays were in a tent or a caravan inside the UK. We didn't go skiing or anything like that. It was and I have a memory of my parents coming home from shopping, and they'd been in the UK at the time. This is a story I don't think I've ever told before. In the UK, in the late 80s, early 90s, there were two big supermarkets were having a battle to gain customers. And they'd reduced the price of cans of baked beans to 1 penny or 1 cent. And there'd been this price war on baked beans. And they brought the price down to just 1p and then limited the amount that people could buy. And I recall that my parents had come home and they had like a car full of tins of baked beans.
Oh,
Because
wow.
they'd gone back into the shop as many times as possible to buy these beans. And then they were writing dates. My mum was writing dates on the cans in a big black pen, like a Sharpie. And it was the date that we weren't allowed to eat the food before, because it had to last until that time. So it meant that we had, dinner was what we had in the UK, fairly common, beans on toast, maybe with a bit of scrambled egg or something as well. And so the food was almost rationed. Now, I'm not saying this is we weren't starving by any means. There was enough food, but that one thing stuck with me.
Yeah.
Like, why would you write dates on food? And it was to ensure that they could plan that there was food for us.
Mm-hmm.
So that turns out isn't an every family experience.
Yeah, not all
But
moms are writing dates on cans of food, right?
no, many people are struggling with food, and we could spend a lot of time talking about that.
Right.
Food scarcity and being food poor is a real problem.
Oh, yeah.
But I never saw that. I never appreciated that, because they always worked phenomenally hard to make sure that my sister and I had clothes and shoes and food. And it's one of those things that, whether I recognize it or not, that planning, that being conscious of what things cost, has carried through my life. I'm not frugal, but I am careful with how I manage
I like
money.
the way you said that. I'm careful. When did you realize the distinction? You probably, it sounds like as a young child, you just felt cared for and you didn't know that other people didn't do certain things, like putting dates on their food, things like that. When did you realize the extent to which your parents were working that hard to make sure that all the pieces were in place for you?
I think the true appreciation came when I was an adult. So really,
really?
The true appreciation, once you really start fending for yourself completely, it came in sort of graduation across from being a child and up. I contributed to the household as soon as I started working at 14, 15. I was contributing a very small amount, but each week I was putting into the household. So I knew that contributing was necessary. But the stark difference came when I was younger. So I got a scholarship, and my family got financial help to send me to a very good school.
Oh, nice.
And it was very, very, very fortunate. But that showed me the difference between having money and not having money, because it was an incredibly good prep school. And there was absolutely no way my parents could get anywhere close to affording this. But I needed to go for sort of educationally. I was struggling in the school that I was in, so I went to this school. I got a full funded scholarship through multiple means. And on the parents' day, when all the parents come into the school, my friends had their families turned up in the Rolls Royce, and the butler set up the small marquee, and they had their chilled wine in the full service. My dad turned up, took the back seat out of our Citroen 2CV, which is a very old car, and we sat on the ground eating egg sandwiches. And that really showed me that, well, okay, there is a difference between what's happening in my house, where we're sat on the ground eating egg sandwiches with a car that my dad sort of partly built, and people who had their servants doling out their food. And that was a really big stark difference for me in the haves and have-nots.
Wow.
But I was in that weird place because I was in that school. I had all of the privilege of the education. But none of the comfort and ability that usually comes with that comes as part of that package.
Yeah. Did you feel any of those differences day to day with the other students? Did you notice any of that? I mean, how old were you when you went to that school?
I think I was about 7 when I went to
Oh, you were
the prep
young.
school. I was very young. I
Yeah.
needed to go because I was causing a lot of trouble at home. I was a troublesome child. I was
Ah,
very, very bored
ah.
and causing trouble at home, causing trouble in the school, even as a 7-year-old, causing a lot of problems. And the solution was try and keep me busy.
Mm.
So the question was, did I notice sort of with the other kids? Um, there were there were obvious signs. I exclusively wore secondhand clothes, and
Mm.
they all had brand new clothes
Hmm.
almost every term.
Yeah.
They would have toys and the latest gadgets and gizmos, and if I was lucky, I would have something similar, but I'd have one of them, and they would have 10 of them.
Oh, wow.
Um, and so that was quite stark. But the biggest challenge was the fact that I wasn't with my own age group. I skipped 2 years in the school.
Oh, okay.
I was different enough from being the 7-year-old with the 9-year-olds that it didn't really, like, everything else sort of paled in comparison to that.
Wow. So, I'm imagining, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm imagining you as this, probably wildly curious, active-minded 7-year-old who's, sort of causing trouble wherever you go, although you call it causing trouble, but I'm imagining that there's also just you just wildly curious, you taking a lot of things in and putting a lot of energy out. Then you end up at this prep school. You're with kids older than you, and yet there's this feeling like I'm always different from everyone. I don't know if that was no matter
I
where
did
you
feel
went,
different.
right?
Uh, I I'm chuckling because I think I was a wildly arrogant child. Obviously,
Oh,
I'm full of humility now.
I I think you
I,
are.
well, that's very kind of you, Tammy. We have known each other for long enough for me to believe that
I think
you
you
feel
are.
that.
Yeah.
It's not been. I've always been very confident,
Mm.
but as a child, I was wildly arrogant. I would
Huh.
literally believed I was the gift and better than everybody else around me. And um, yeah, thank goodness that's changed at least a little bit. And so that probably overshadowed any feelings of not belonging. Well, of course I didn't belong. They, why should I? Um, and it wasn't helped by things like I got really good grades for no effort. So I was the that child that the teachers detest because I'd get an A for effort and an A for outcome, but a 0 for effort, which
Oh.
usually meant I would cause trouble and I would be lazy and I wouldn't go the extra mile
Mm.
because I just got it. And thankfully, around the age of 17, 16,
Mhm.
17, I grew out of that and started really putting some effort in.
So what do you think triggered the change? Was it just maturity or did some other things occur that sort of equalized your kind of sense
Ah,
of yourself and your ability to achieve?
a little bit of environmental factors and one great big event. So the
Yeah.
environmental factors were I left the prep school and there's like the money had all run out. That all of the possible support ran out when I was 11. And I
Ah.
was incredibly lucky to get into a school called Christ's Hospital in the UK.
Hmm.
And it's a private school that's a charity for people who can't afford to go to private school.
Wow.
And it is absolutely phenomenal. Have you heard of Eton, sort of Eton
Yes.
College?
Yes, sure.
It's that type of education, it's that level of education, but for people who have nothing. 60% of the students at the time that I was there had to pay no fees. So the requirement on the school, which was supported by a bursary and a long history, 450 years worth of support, the school had to bring people from the most challenging, disadvantaged backgrounds.
Interesting.
And only 6% of the students were allowed to pay full fees, and the rest were on a sliding scale.
Interesting.
So I was really lucky to get in there because it meant I could continue a quality education that my family could never dreamt of affording.
Hmm.
So being in that environment and being with my own age group meant that suddenly everything was more equal.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So I was surrounded by also have-nots, and in some cases I was a have against their have-nots because their situation was dire in their home and their background.
Mm.
So that was fairly equal, and we all sort of became fairly normal. Not normalized. I wouldn't say normal. We were all
Right.
special cases.
Well, I know what you're saying, though. The dynamic was just
Yes.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that school was a great equalizer. And I got older and matured. So that was the environmental change. The big bang wallop that
Yeah.
significantly changed my mindset was literally a big bang wallop. I got hit by a car when I
Oh
was
my
about
goodness.
15. And it was a bad accident. I was hit at about just over 40, 45 miles an hour. And
Wow.
it was seriously lucky that I wasn't killed in that accident. And it was my fault. I ran across a road that I shouldn't have run across. And the people who knew me before and after that event, some years later, told me that that was the point that I stopped freeloading and coasting and started taking every single opportunity that was presented to me. And to get really practical on this, in the school, there were opportunities to do everything. And I got to the age of 16 and had done basically none of them. I hadn't taken advantage of any extracurricular stuff. I did the bare minimum. And then in my last 2 years at the school, I did everything. I joined the band. I took music lessons. I got into the sort of higher level sports teams. I started taking on like the canoe lessons, all of the other stuff. Joined the community service team, started volunteering, ran my own business, got a couple of jobs. Although the work ethic had already been there from a younger age. But I took advantage of absolutely everything and started saying yes to it all. And that transition happened it was, a maturity point in my life as well, becoming a mid to late teenager. But the seizing life unconsciously started to happen after I nearly lost mine.
That's amazing. And you said earlier that you had started working at 14. Now, the school you call Christ's Hospital, which I think is a funny name for a school. Were you living at home while you were in this school?
No, it's a boarding school.
It is a boarding
800
school.
pupils. Yeah. Mixed school.
So when you were at 14 working, it sounds like your first job and contributing to the family in some way, was that a regular job or something you did here and there when you were at home, or was that how did your working life begin in that way? I'm curious.
Yeah, so when I was 14, my parents split, and I went with my father to live with his parents, and so traveled across the country. So I went from living about 45 minutes away from the school, which was a boarding school, to living 4.5 hours away from the school.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And so the work began in the holidays. I worked at the local. Yeah, it was great. It was great because I would go home and have long holidays.
Yes, yeah.
I worked for £2 an hour in my first job. So at the time, that was $3, given the exchange rate, $3 an hour, as a sort of a gopher, go do this, go do that, at a local small amusement park.
Oh.
And my first paycheck was something for a whole week was something like £30.
Wow.
And I'd work after taxes, and they'd taken all the other stuff off.
Really?
Yeah. And I bought myself a watch. And I put the rest, I contribute, I think to begin with, at that age, I didn't contribute to the house. That happened a couple of years later.
Yeah.
But I bought a watch and had something like £10 left over, which was wonderful.
Yeah. Wow.
And then I went back to school and had to make that £10 last a very long time.
Oh, I see. Wow. So interesting. I always find it interesting to find out like what was somebody's first paid job, just to see what's your introduction to the world of work. What does that look like? Because people don't often give credit to that first paid job as their beginning of their career. They think of the first job out of university or something like that.
Oh,
And
yes.
I think those early work experiences teach us a lot. And clearly you grew up watching your parents work hard and upon reflection, even more so lessons learned there. So you had quite an interesting childhood.
Yes.
So you said 17 was also kind of a pivotal time for you. Was that when you finished at Christ's Hospital?
17, 18 were my last 2 years there.
Ah, okay.
And that's when I'd started saying yes to everything. And I'd started, I wouldn't say fully applying myself, but applying myself more.
Yeah.
And I was awarded 2 scholarships by the Royal Air Force in the UK to learn to glide and to learn to fly powered aircraft.
Oh, wow.
And that was going to be my chosen path, was becoming a pilot in the Air Force. And so I went through these programs, and it was wonderful to be in charge of a plane and be up in the sky, to be in charge of a glider with no engine. If you make a mistake, there's like you hit a house or a tree and you're done because there's no going back up again.
Yeah.
And to have that experience at 17 was just incredible.
Wow.
And I went through the flying process. And what the Air Force does is they take potential future pilots and they send them to a civilian flying school. And you go and live for a month in a house in a random place. I lived in Scotland for a month, 5 weeks. And in a house with a bunch of other boys my own age. We were all 18, put in this house, and we were flying every day. That's what we were there to do. And that's when I really discovered this was no big surprise to anybody who knew me, but it was something that I finally learned. I wasn't very good at being told what to do.
Oh.
And military plus not being good at being told what to do is not a perfect match.
Yeah.
And unsurprisingly, I finished the flight training, and I thought, well, I don't want to do this. And they thought, we don't want you to do this. And so the Royal Air Force and I parted ways after they'd taught me to fly.
So you knew you didn't want to do that, but did you have another plan at that point? Because that's such an important pivotal point in life where, you're finished with that part of your schooling and it's like, oh, I have my whole life ahead of me. Now what?
Yeah, that phrase, like, oh, I've got it all ahead of me, now what, sort of describes my, lack of decision-making process up until my mid-30s.
Okay. Take us on the journey.
So I wasn't going to become a pilot in the Royal Air Force anymore. So what do I do? And I hadn't made, again, until my mid-30s, I hadn't made a real decision. I just took some of the options that were in front of me and sort of drifted through the big things. And so I knew I needed to apply for university because the school was saying, you must apply for university.
Yeah.
So I only did it because they literally walked us through the process. And I thought, well, what do I do? Well, I'm good at building stuff. I enjoy making stuff. I'm good at maths. I did 3 maths A-levels, which is a ridiculous number if anyone listening knows the British A-level system. And I was like, well, and I like planes, so I guess aerospace engineering. But I didn't look at anything else. I just did it. I mean, the school wanted people to apply to Oxford and Cambridge, so I applied to Oxford and Cambridge. I didn't really want to go, but that's what we were told to do. So I was just doing what I was told.
It's so interesting how you didn't like being told what to do, and then you went and you did what you were told to do, right?
It is a bit odd. I think path of least resistance is probably the guiding principle that I had.
Yes.
But at the same time, I was the only person in the school to have a job, and I had three of them. Because by the end of my school time, I was working when I was at the school. So I worked at the local builders. I had my own bike repair business that I'd set up in the school. And the best one, I was a barman at the pub that the teachers went to when they weren't working.
Really?
Yes. Not very popular. Half the teachers liked it, and half the teachers hated the fact that there was a student there.
That's amazing. Well, and the fact that you were of an age that you could do that, because in this country, I don't know if you.
Yes, 21 is the US, but it's 18 is the drinking age in the UK. So I could be a barman at 18.
That's amazing.
And my birthday's near the beginning of the school year, so I ended up working through most of the school year.
Wow.
And so I had these jobs, and it meant I actually got quite a lot of, I might be getting the school in trouble now. I got quite a lot of leeway. So there were events that you needed to go to, and going to chapel on Sunday morning was, a requirement at the school.
Yeah.
Except I didn't, because I went to work. And I was allowed that because it wasn't because I was lying around in bed. I'd got a job, so they allowed me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Which also didn't help my I can skirt around the rules mentality that I had for a while.
Wow. Well, all of this amounts to lots of learning one way or the other, and clearly you stepped through all of that and have reflected on it and seen what worked for you, what didn't work for you, or where it took you, right? And how you made decisions at that age, or even what was important to you at that age, right? And then how you kind of found your way through to make different kinds of decisions, not even just what the decisions were, but the way in which you looked at your life and looked at what choices you wanted to make for yourself. I mean, fortunately, you were clearly, very bright and were able to make lots of choices, because whatever you decided to do, you would probably do it well, as long as no one was telling you what to do. Right?
Yes. I love the way you make it sound like I was so intentional.
No, I think in retrospect, you would look back on it, right? You'd look back on it and say, no, clearly you were not intentional when you were younger. You were just finding your way, right? But I think somewhere along the way you became more intentional. It sounds like around your mid-30s. It sounds like you're pointing toward.
Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely when it happened. It definitely didn't happen at the end, during or the end of university. I was incredibly short-sighted through university. It was all about
where did you go to university? I know it sounds like you were interested in aerospace engineering.
Yes, I ended up at Southampton University, one of the top aerospace engineering universities. And the teacher at my school, who was a really good friend as well, his dad was a lecturer on the course. So it just sort of made sense to go there. And I looked at a few, but there was a connection. So, okay, I'll go there.
Another kind of like, all right, I'll go here.
Exactly. And I went through university, mostly working. My work ethic really kicked in university. I spent more time at work than in class. And that definitely had an impact on my grades. By that point, my high opinion of myself no longer matched the output that I was producing, and I had to work much harder.
Oh.
Unfortunately, the financial background meant that I got through university by myself, which thousands of people do.
Yeah.
But there were weeks when I was literally counting pennies to work out how I could buy food. And not the wisest financial decisions. I wasn't as frugal as I should have been. So some of that was definitely self-imposed. And I had a very expensive sport. I used to compete in target rifle shooting.
Oh my goodness.
And that is, so it's making holes in bits of paper at various distances.
Right.
But every time the rifle goes bang, that's 25 cents.
Okay.
And in a competition, I might be firing 100 rounds.
But you could win. Could you win money for winning a competition?
No. Oh
so
gosh, no, there's no money in this
there's
at all.
no winning side to this. Okay.
No.
Other than the satisfaction of winning.
The satisfaction and sort of trinket medals, and sometimes really great big like trophies and things that you hand back afterwards because they're too valuable to take away. You get your name engraved on it. But that was an expensive sport, so a lot of my funds went into that. But I won't get diverted on that topic anymore. I got to the end of university, and everyone had applied for jobs, except me. I for some reason I'd forgotten to do that bit, and we were in our course. We did group programs, group projects in our last year, and of the 6 people, of which I was one in my group, all 5 of them had jobs, and 4 of them had got jobs at the same company, and I hadn't applied for anything yet, and they'd got their formal offers. I thought, oh gosh, I should probably do this, and guess where I ended up working? Where the 4 others were.
Okay. I thought you were going to say you got a job with the Air Force.
I got a job where the others got their jobs because that was the path of least resistance. I was so unintentional at that point. But that was the moment where I started to become intentional, where I started to look for opportunity, like really look for opportunities, rather than just taking the ones that came along.
Mm-hmm.
I would look for them. Because on day 1 of that job, they were doing orientation, and it was for a defense company in the UK called Kinetic. And they were talking about the company. And they'd said, oh, we have like locations all around the UK, and we've got this one up here on a really random island off the coast of Scotland. And I went, can I go there, please? And they said, funnily enough, we've just opened up a placement for 5 months to go there. It will start in 3 months' time. Do you want it? I was like, yeah, I want to go and live on an island randomly in this place, because when would I ever have that opportunity? So I did that, and that started an incredible period of work opportunities. It led to me meeting my wife.
Oh, wow.
All these things are linked together. And then moving into different companies, and then moving to America, and fast forward through 12 years, and I became 35 and started making intentional decisions.
That's a fascinating story, though, because the way that you describe yourself, it really could have gone in so many different directions.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, it could. I was incredibly lucky. I've always believed that while I take good opportunities that are presented to me, not in a take them in a greedy way, but grasping the opportunity that is there, I've had this big dollop of luck all the way through.
Yeah. Well, and I think, we could have a whole episode of this podcast just talking about luck. You have to show up for it, right? And it sounds like even though you were taking the path of least resistance in so many ways as you describe it, you still had to show up. You do. Can I tell you a luck story though? That this is why I firmly believe there's a dollop of luck. I want to hear a luck story. Absolutely.
So during the summer break from university, I worked in a hotel in North Devon, and I was a waiter and barman and did a bunch of other things. One Saturday night, a person turns up and says, "Can I have a seat, please?" And we were fully booked, totally booked. And he said, "Oh, I've just driven down from Bristol. It was a 3-hour drive." He said, "I brought my wife down, and we were really hoping to eat here." And we were packed. I said, "Well, I think I can." I was looking at the table plans, and I think I can squeeze in one table. It was sort of between the 2 toilet doors. It was a terrible, terrible seat. I said, "We can put it in. It's not a great seat, but if you want to eat, this is the only place we can do it." Mm-hmm. And I ended up serving that table. And he was telling me about his work and so on. And so we were talking, because that's part of what I did as the waiter, was to interact with the guests. Anyway, he worked at an engineering company. He realized I was doing aerospace engineering at university. He said, "Oh, give me your number. I'll call you. We'll give you a job." And so I did, and thought no more about it. Fast forward a year, I was in my house in Southampton, which is 3-4 hours away from where I lived. And we had a landline they barely exist anymore, a wired-in telephone with a cord that you'd pick up.
Well, I know those very well, but
and maybe some of the listeners aren't familiar with those. It's all cell phones. So we had a landline, and of course, none of us used it. None of us ever checked. It didn't have an answer machine. But on one day, totally randomly, and I don't know why, I'd come in and I thought, I wonder if anyone's called. And I picked up, and there was a tone, certain beep that tells you that somebody had called.
right.
Oh. So I pressed the buttons because there's a very limited voicemail service. I just happened to do that. It was that guy offering me a summer placement at his company. And that was pure luck that I'd met him, that I could squeeze the thing in, that we talked about stuff, and that a year later, I, for some random reason, picked up a phone, which I never did.
Stories.
Never did that in the house. And
Yeah.
I got an engineering placement that without it, I wouldn't have got the other job that led to me meeting my wife.
Wow. I love that. And it was almost a year later that he called you?
Oh, yes. Yeah, hadn't heard from him.
See how-
there was absolutely no connection.
Well, Chris, that just shows how memorable you are. And I can vouch for that too. So
Well, thank you.
I love that story. It reminds me also of a book and an author who I had on the podcast many episodes ago, Christian Bush, who wrote a book called Serendipity. And he looks at all the research that points to these kinds of things. But, I think there's always that element of magic in that serendipity too. So you met your wife, I know you're married, you have a family now. You're beyond your mid-30s. I don't know how much farther beyond that you are, but I know you've written several books. So, and clearly you're not working in aerospace engineering anymore. So take us through some of the other transitions that have occurred through your maturing years.
Yes.
Your intentional years, let's say.
Intentional moves. And this I will keep brief because we could spend a lot of time on this. I could talk about this for a lot. I moved from defense after 2 years and 1 day. And the reason it was 2 years and 1 day was if I stayed for that long, I would get like a bonus payment into my pension.
Uh-huh.
So I stayed for that long. It was a fantastic organization. Absolutely loved working there until I got promoted too much for what I was doing. And I was traveling, was working something like 50 to 60 hours a week, plus 30 hours of travel on top every week.
Oh, that's a lot.
And it was too much. And so I was offered a job on twice the money and half the hours, and really jumped at that, leapt at that change. So moved from defense to telecoms.
Oh, interesting.
Had a wonderful, mostly it was proximity, money, and hours. That was the decision making.
Sure.
It was within the same area that I didn't have to move house. And at that age, doubling a salary is huge. Absolutely huge.
Yeah.
So that was worth doing. And I spent a good 5 years or so in various roles in the telecoms company, from customer service to tech stuff behind the scenes, and ended up being flown around the world to work with various phone manufacturers to try and improve the working relationships between the companies. I always, for some reason, ended up with the difficult or ill-defined or on-fire programs and projects because I liked the uncertainty and I was happy problem solving. So I did that for a while, and then got to a point where I'd been there for quite some time. There wasn't a path for me to move up unless I'd moved to France, because the company was owned by France Telecom. So unless I moved to France and spoke French, I was really capping out at the level I was at. And so I started looking for a different job. By this point, I'd met and married Danielle, my wife. And in the process of me looking for a job, she happened to find one.
Oh.
Which she promised that she was looking for me, but always seemed to come up with things that worked out well for her. And we ended up moving to America.
Oh, wow. What part of America?
We lived in Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake area, sort of the 5 cities in Hampton Roads. And She got an absolutely fantastic job. It was wonderful for her career, and I was unemployed for half a year,
Wow.
which was a significant change
I bet.
in working like crazy to not working at all.
Wow. That's amazing.
And then I got a job at a small company and spent a year helping a small company grow. And then I moved into a grown-up job at a at, at a US healthcare company, and worked my way up through project management,
Huh.
up to program management, up to a director of a project office, and ended up running some of their biggest. My teams in our department. There were 4 directors in this department, and our team of varying between 50 and 80 at any given month were running the biggest programs and projects that this company had. They were being named on the Wall Street earnings calls. Our projects were being called out by name as share price impacting programs of work. And so that was, and I see you're looking quite surprised
Well,
as I say
I'm processing
that.
aerospace engineering and realizing you over, between that and the telecoms, the work that you did in telecoms, your work as an engineer was clearly dissipating into more of the people side of things, and
Yes.
and then really the your business mind, which I'm not surprised about given how industrious you were, starting to be someone who was a real worker from a young age, that there was that other part of you. But I think there's clearly something that you brought to all of this that accumulated over those years too. That
It did. And it's the common thread that links to what I do now.
Yeah, so let's go there.
All the way through, I bridged the gap between technical teams and business teams. Everything I did, I either had a foot in both camps, or I was the translator between both. And so I took my ability to solve problems in engineering and applied it to solving problems wherever there was a problem, whether it was engineering, business, or something else. But that ability to translate and communicate between sides was the common thread. And so when I left employment in my mid to late 30s and left that full-time employed behind, the thing I've moved into is communication. And while I will work in any industry at any level, my real enjoyment, the joy place for me, is bridging that gap between technical and business teams, or between experts and non-experts.
Yeah, and that's a gift, I think, to be able to do that. It's vitally important because we have a lot of great, technical minds out there, but not everybody is able to do that translation, and yet that translation is vitally important to the progress of all kinds of organizations.
It absolutely is. And so my mission now, my reason, the things I do, the things I spend my time doing in my happy place, is finding simple ways to help people bridge that gap and turning it into simple formulas, simple methods and frameworks that can help translate from one area of expertise to another. And that's what all my books and courses and training are full of. It's simple frameworks to help bridge that gap.
So from your mid to late 30s, you really, to coin a phrase, you hung up your own shingle and started your own business. Am I right about that?
I did, yes. In 1 year, my wife and I quit our jobs, left the UK, got caught up in COVID, had 13 homes in 3 countries in 1 year. I wrote a book and started a business.
Why am I not surprised?
Things have calmed down since then.
So you've, and I know you've been prolific with your books, and they are. I mean, think about the titles even. The First Minute, Effective Emails, Making Training Stick. They all exude that sort of message of, let's just focus on this one path. Let's do this one path really well. You lay it out beautifully in all of your books for each area, and you make it accessible to people in lots of different industries. And then I know you travel all over the place, and you're presenting and you're speaking and you're sharing a variety of messages with people to inform them of what can become accessible to them. Because I think so many of us way overcomplicate things that could really improve our communication with one another, right?
Yes, we do. And we do it for so many valid reasons that we should all forgive ourselves for doing it. Because we didn't get clear and concise lessons at school.
No.
And human nature is around storytelling, and our insecurities, whether they are recognized or subconscious, mean we believe other people need to have lots of information to be able to understand so they can make a good decision. And most of that is rubbish. Most of that isn't true.
Yeah.
But we've never been shown anything different. So that's, as you said, the magic word when you described my books, which is practical. That's the one thing that if anybody, after I've delivered a training session, it's very nice to receive praise. It absolutely is.
Sure.
But there's one word that stands out about everything else, above everything else, which is if anyone says, gosh, that was practical. Oh, yes, that's the win, because that's the thing I strive for. Really practical, usable stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree with you more, because we can put bright, shiny ideas out there and pontificate about how, all our accomplishments. But if people can't find a good takeaway that they can use pretty quickly, I think our impact can kind of fade away a little bit. But I think what you've brought with your books, with your training, with your speaking, is something that people can really take away and then want to go back and refer to other frameworks you've created and other things and come back again and again.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly right.
So, Chris, I hate to feel rushed through this, and we can always have you back too, because we really, I think, painting the picture of your journey up till today has been so fascinating and informative to show people, what the possibilities are when you come from, a childhood or a background where you weren't intentional, or you didn't have everything in place that maybe somebody else did, or you thought you did, and then you realize later, oh, this, you know what? I wasn't finding my way as well as I thought. And yet here you are today in this place where at least I get the feeling that you are feeling as grounded as and intentional as you ever have in your life.
Yes, I'm where I belong.
Yeah, I love hearing that.
Work and home and family and love, and I am where I belong, and it's wonderful.
Oh, good. So if people want to learn more about your books and your work, or want to get in touch, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, come and find me on my website. It's chrisfenning.com. They're a fairly easy one to remember there. And my social hangout is LinkedIn. If you have any questions, you're interested in poking around what I do, check me out on LinkedIn. And if you Google me, all my books and stuff will come up. They're available wherever you like to buy books. And
I can attest to the fact that Chris is one of the most responsive and accessible people I've known over the last several years. So now you're really committed here, Chris.
Well, thank you, Tammy. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, if you were to give someone one key piece of advice about making a change or a transition in terms of what's next for them in their professional life, what would be a key piece of advice you would offer them?
All right, I'm going to give you a piece of advice that my dad gave me when I was younger. Don't just talk about doing it, do it.
Okay.
And the little bit extra that goes with it is, if you want to do a big thing, go and take a tiny step to try it out. If you think you want to learn to fly planes, go and book a private lesson and go and see if you like it, because you might hate it or you might get airsick. You won't know until you take that step.
I agree.
If you want to open a restaurant, go and talk to people who run restaurants and go and find out what it's really like.
Yes.
Don't just talk about doing a thing. Do the thing. If you want to write a book, start writing the book, or buy a book about how to write a book. Take a small step. Don't talk about doing it. Actually get on and take a small step to start doing it.
Yep. Oh, great advice. Chris, thank you so much for being here today. I could have talked to you for hours and really appreciate it. And I can't encourage people enough to take at least 1 to 2 pages out of your books and your story. And I hope they'll get in touch with you. So,
well, thank you, Tammy.
I appreciate it.
It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks for sticking around to the end of my interview with Chris Fenning. What is your key takeaway from our conversation? If you are interested in any of the resources mentioned in today's podcast, you can find them in the show notes on my website at tammygoolerloeb.com/podcast. Just look for episode 247. And while you're there, you can also subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes. Please help me to inspire more people to grow their careers by clicking on the Apple Podcasts button and leave an honest rating and brief review. Ratings and reviews help the visibility of the podcast, and by doing so, you'll help me inspire more people. Are you anticipating your next professional move? Check out my award-winning book, Work from the Inside Out: Break Through 9 Common Obstacles and Design a Career That Fulfills You. It's available through my website, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores, or through your local library. You can also help sustain the podcast by buying me a cup of coffee at buymeacoffee.com/TammyGL. Since this podcast is self-funded, your support is acknowledged and appreciated. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. I'd love to hear from you. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.